Now we are going to learn about nervous system in human. A quick summary of nervous system in human. With the help of this lecture series, we will be having a quick recap about organization of human brain, then cerebrum and cerebral lobes, cerebral cortex and its functional areas, motor cortex, Broca's area, somatosensory cortex and its association area, gustatory cortex, then visual cortex and its association area, auditory cortex and its association area, olfactory cortex, Wernicke's area, Brodmann map, cerebral dominance, cortical white matter, commissures, association fibers, projection fibers, corpus callosum and Wernicke's, basal nuclei, organization and function, brainstem, organization and function, cerebellum, structure and function, diencephalon, organization and function, then functional brain system of limbic system and reticular formation, then protection of brain like meninges, cerebrospinal fluid, its formation and function, then blood brain barrier and its function. Along with that, diseased states of brain like schizophrenia, Alzheimer's disease, senile dementia and Parkinson's disease. Then memory, its definition, types of memory, short term, intermediate, long term and long term memory. Then consolidation of memory, PNS and autonomic nerve system, spinal cord, its structure, then reflex action, reflex arc, monosynaptic and polysynaptic reflexes, then inverse stretch reflex and Golgi tendon organ. So with the help of this video series, we will be having a quick recap of all these topics. Along with that, some other real life application of this topic, like what should we do for a better health of our central nervous system. So let's start learning about this topic. The nervous system is a complex network of cells, tissues and organs that coordinate and regulate the functions of the body. It is responsible for receiving, processing and transmitting information as well as controlling and coordinating various bodily activities. Let's explore the nervous system in detail, including its parts, structure, functions and mechanisms. Parts of the nervous system. Central nervous system. It consists of the brain and spinal cord. The brain is the control center of the body, responsible for processing sensory information, initiating responses and controlling bodily functions. The spinal cord relays information between the brain and the peripheral nerve system. Then peripheral nerve system or PNS, it includes all the nerves outside of the CNS. The PNS is further divided into the somatic nerve system, which controls voluntary movements, and the autonomic nerve system, which regulates involuntary functions. Structure of the nervous system. The nervous system is composed of specialized cells called neurons. Neurons have a unique structure that allows them to transmit electric impulses. They consist of a cell body, dendrites that receive signals from other neurons, and an axon that transmits signals to other neurons or target tissues. Functions of nervous system. Sensory function. The nervous system receives information from sensory receptors throughout the body, allowing us to perceive and interpret stimuli from external environment. Then integrative function. The nervous system processes and integrates sensory information, allowing us to make sense of the world around us. Then motor function. The nervous system sends signals to muscles and glands, enabling voluntary and involuntary movements and controlling various bodily functions. Then homeostasis. The nervous system plays a crucial role in maintaining internal balance, regulating body temperature, blood pressure and other physiological variables. Now, mechanisms of the nervous system. Electrical signaling. Neurons transmit information through electrical impulses called action potentials. These impulses are generated when the electrical charge inside a neuron changes, causing a wave of depolarization to travel along the neuron. Then chemical signaling. Neurons communicate with each other and with other cells through chemical signals called neurotransmitters. Then neurotransmitters are released from the synaptic vesicles of one neuron and bind to receptors on another neuron or target tissue, transmitting the signal. Then synaptic transmission. When an action potential reaches the end of an axon, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters into the synapse, the small gap between neurons. The neurotransmitters then bind to receptors on the postsynaptic neuron, initiating a new electrical impulse. And what is the importance of the nervous system? The nervous system is essential for the proper functioning of the body. It allows us to perceive the world, initiate movement, and coordinate complex physiological processes. Without the nervous system, our ability to think, feel, and interact with the environment would be severely compromised. Then, examples of nervous system disorders: Alzheimer's disease, a progressive neurodegenerative disorder characterized by memory loss, cognitive decline, and behavioral changes. Then, Parkinson's disease, a neurological disorder that affects movement, causing tremors, muscle stiffness, and difficulty with balance and coordination. Then, multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune disease that affects the central nervous system, leading to the destruction of protective covering of nerve fibers and resulting in various neurological symptoms. So, in conclusion, the nervous system is a complex and intricate system that regulates and coordinates the functions of the body. It consists of the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, neurons, and various signaling mechanisms. Understanding the structure, functions, and mechanisms of the nervous system is crucial for comprehending how our bodies function and for diagnosing and treating neurological disorders. Then, organization of human brain in detail. The human brain is the most complex organ in the body and serves as the cortical center for all bodily functions, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It is responsible for processing sensory information, coordinating motor responses, and maintaining homeostasis. The human brain can be divided into several major regions, each with its own unique functions and characteristics. Here are the key structures and their roles. Cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain and is responsible for higher cognitive functions such as consciousness, perception, memory, language, and decision making. It is divided into two hemispheres, the left and right, which are connected by a bundle of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. Then, cerebellum. The cerebellum is located at the back of the brain below the cerebrum. It plays a crucial role in coordinating voluntary movements, balance, posture, and motor learning. It receives information from the sensory systems, spinal cord, and other parts of the brain to fine tune motor output. Then, brainstem. The brainstem is located at the base of the brain and acts as a bridge connecting the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord. It controls essential functions for survival, including breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and digestion. The brainstem consists of three main parts: the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Then, limbic system. The limbic system is a collection of structures involved in emotions, memory, and motivation. It involves the hippocampus, which is crucial for forming new memories, and the amygdala, which plays a role in processing emotions, particularly fear and aggression. Then, basal ganglia. The basal ganglia are a group of interconnected structures deep within the brain. They are involved in the control of voluntary movement as well as cognitive functions such as reward processing and habit formation. Then, thalamus. The thalamus acts as a relay station, receiving sensory information from various sensory systems and relaying it to the appropriate regions of the cerebral cortex. It also plays a role in regulating consciousness and sleep. Then, hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is located below the thalamus and is responsible for regulating various physiological processes including body temperature, hunger, thirst, sleep wake cycles, and hormone production. It also controls the autonomic nervous system and plays a role in emotions. There are just a few examples of the major structures within the human brain. Each structure has its own unique functions, but they also work together in a highly interconnected manner to enable complex cognitive and physiological processes. The importance of understanding the organization of the human brain, diagnosis and treatment of disorders. Understanding the organization of the brain is crucial for diagnosing and treating neurological and psychiatric disorders. It helps clinicians localize the source of dysfunction and develop appropriate treatment strategies. Then, research and advancements. Studying the organization of the brain provides insights into how it functions and helps drive advancements in neuroscience. It contributes to our understanding of human behavior, cognition, and consciousness. Then, brain health and well being. Knowledge of the brain's organization can guide strategies for maintaining brain health and preventing cognitive decline. It informs lifestyle choices such as exercise, diet, and mental stimulation that can support brain function and overall well being. Then cerebrum in detail. The cerebrum is the largest and the most complex part of the human brain. It is responsible for a wide range of actions including sensory perception, motor control, memory, language, emotions, and higher cognitive processes. Parts and structure of the cerebrum. Cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is the outermost layer of the cerebrum and is composed of gray matter. It is highly convoluted and is responsible for higher cognitive functions such as consciousness, awareness, perception, memory, language, and decision making. The cortex is divided into two hemispheres, left and right, which are further divided into four lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. Corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is a bundle of nerve fibers that connects the two hemispheres of the cerebrum. It allows communication and information exchange between the left and right hemispheres, facilitating coordinated functioning. Then basal ganglia. The basal ganglia are a group of nuclei located deep within the cerebral hemisphere. They play a role in the control of voluntary movements, motor planning, and coordination. Then limbic system, which we have already learned. The limbic system is a complex network of structures located deep within the cerebrum. It includes the hypothalamus, hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, and cingulate gyrus. The limbic system is involved in emotions, memory formation, motivation, and the regulation of basic physiological functions. Then, functions and importance of cerebrum. Sensory processing. The cerebrum receives and processes sensory information from the environment, allowing us to perceive and interpret our surroundings. Different areas of the cerebral cortex specialize in processing specific sensory inputs such as vision, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Then motor control. The cerebrum controls voluntary movements through its connections with the motor cortex and other motor related areas. It coordinates muscle activity and allows us to perform precise and coordinated movements. Then language and communication. Specific regions of the cerebrum such as the Broca's area and Wernicke's area are involved in language production and comprehension. These areas play a crucial role in speech, reading, writing, and language based communication. Then, memory and learning. The cerebrum, particularly the hippocampus, is vital for the formation, storage, and retrieval of memories. It enables us to learn new information, recall past experience, and engage in cognitive processes such as problem solving and decision making. Then, higher cognitive functions. The cerebrum is responsible for complex cognitive functions including reasoning, attention, executive functioning, such as planning and organization, and abstract thinking. These functions are crucial for intellectual pursuits, problem solving, creativity, and overall cognitive abilities. Then, defects and disorders of the cerebrum. Stroke. A stroke occurs when there is a disruption of blood flow to a part of the brain, leading to damage or cell death. Depending on the affected area. Wait a minute. The stroke occurs when there is a disruption of blood flow to a part of brain, leading to damage or cell death. Depending on the affected area in the cerebrum, strokes can result in various neurological deficits such as paralysis, speech impairments, or cognitive impairments. Then, traumatic brain injury. Severe head injuries can damage the cerebrum, resulting in cognitive, motor, or sensory impairments. The specific deficits depend on the location and extent of the injury. Then, neurodegenerative disorders. Disorders like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and Huntington's disease can affect the cerebrum, leading to progressive deterioration of cognitive and motor functions. Then, developmental disorders. Conditions such as autism spectrum disorder and Alzheimer's intellectual disabilities can involve abnormalities. Then, cerebral lobe. The cerebrum, the largest part of the human brain, is divided into four lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. Each lobe has unique structures, functions, and importance. Let's explore the parts, structures, functions, importance, and potential defects of each cerebral lobe in detail. Frontal lobe, parts and structure. The frontal lobe is located at the front of the brain and is separated from the parietal lobe by the central sulcus. It consists of various regions, including the prefrontal cortex, primary motor cortex, and Broca's area. Some functions are important, like executive functions. The prefrontal cortex plays a key role in executive functions such as decision making, planning, problem solving, and self control. Then, motor control. The primary motor cortex controls voluntary movements of different body parts. Then, speech production. Broca's area, typically located in the left frontal lobe, is responsible for speech production and language processing. Damage to frontal lobe can result in impairments in decision making, personality changes, difficulty with motor control, and speech production difficulties. Then, parietal lobe, parts and structure. The parietal lobe is situated behind the frontal lobe and is separated from the occipital lobe by the parieto-occipital sulcus. It includes the primary somatosensory cortex and association areas. Functions and importance. Sensory perception. The primary somatosensory cortex receives and processes sensory information related to touch, temperature, pain, and body position. Then, spatial awareness and attention. The parietal lobe is involved in spatial awareness, perception of body's position in space, and attentional processes. Then, defects. Damage to the parietal lobe can lead to sensory impairments, difficulty with spatial awareness, and problems with attention and perception. Then, temporal lobe, parts and structure. The temporal lobe is located on the sides of brain below the lateral fissure. It contains the primary auditory cortex, Wernicke's area, and the hippocampus. Some functions and importance. Auditory processing. The primary auditory cortex is responsible for processing auditory information and interpreting sounds. Then, language comprehension. Wernicke's area, typically found in the left temporal lobe, is crucial for language comprehension. Then, memory formation. The hippocampus, located within the temporal lobe, plays a vital role in the formation and consolidation of new memories. Then, defects. Temporal lobe damage can result in hearing impairments, language comprehension difficulties, memory problems, and disturbances in emotions and behavior. Then, occipital lobe, parts and structure. The occipital lobe is situated at the back of the brain and is primarily responsible for vision. It contains the primary visual cortex and other visual processing areas. Then, some functions and importance. Visual processing. The primary visual cortex receives and processes visual information from the eyes, allowing us to perceive and interpret the visual world. And object recognition. The occipital lobe, along with other areas of the brain, helps in the recognition and interpretation of objects and visual stimuli. Some defects are associated with that, like damage to the occipital lobe can lead to vision impairment such as partial or total blindness and difficulties with object recognition. Understanding the parts, structure, function, and potential defects of each cerebral lobe is crucial for diagnosing and treating neurological disorders. Then, cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is the outermost layer of the cerebrum, which is the largest part of human brain. It is highly convoluted and is responsible for a wide range of cognitive functions. Parts and structure of cerebral cortex. Gyri and sulci. The cerebral cortex is characterized by numerous folds and grooves. The folds are called gyri, while the grooves are known as sulci. These structures increase the surface area of the cortex, allowing for a greater number of neurons and connections. Then, lobes. The cerebral cortex is divided into 4 lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. Each lobe has specific functions and is associated with different sensory, motor, and cognitive processes. Then, layers are there. The cerebral cortex is composed of 6 layers, each with different types of neurons and connections. These layers play a crucial role in information processing and integration within the cortex. Then, functions and importance of cerebral cortex. Sensory processing. Different regions of the cerebral cortex are specialized in processing specific sensory information. The primary sensory areas receive input from sensory organs and processes information related to touch, vision, hearing, taste, and smell. Then, motor control. The primary motor cortex, located in the frontal lobe, is responsible for planning and executing voluntary movements. It sends signals to the muscles to generate specific movements based on sensory inputs and higher cognitive processes. Then, higher cognitive functions. The cerebral cortex is essential for various higher cognitive functions, including attention, memory, perception, language, problem solving, decision making, and reasoning. Different areas of the cortex are involved in these processes, making in collaboration with other brain regions. Then, association areas. The association areas of the cerebral cortex integrate sensory information and connect different parts of the brain. They play a crucial role in complex cognitive processes such as language comprehension, social cognition, and abstract thinking. Then, defects and disorders of the cerebral cortex. Neurodevelopmental disorders. Disorders like autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disabilities can involve abnormalities in the structure and function of the cerebral cortex. These conditions may affect cognitive abilities, social interaction, and communication skills. Then, traumatic brain injury. Severe head injuries can damage the cerebral cortex, leading to cognitive impairments, sensory deficits, motor dysfunction, and changes in behavior and personality. Then, neurodegenerative disorders like diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and Huntington's chorea disease can affect the cerebral cortex, leading to progressive degeneration of neurons and impairments in cognitive and motor functions. Stroke. When blood flow to a part of the cerebral cortex is disrupted, a stroke can occur. This can result in damage to the affected region, leading to various neurological deficits depending on the location and extent of the stroke. Understanding the structure, functions, and potential deficits of the cerebral cortex is crucial for diagnosing and treating neurological disorders. The cerebral cortex plays a vital role in sensory perception, motor control, cognitive processes, and overall brain function. Its complex organization and intricate connections allow for the integration and processing of information, enabling us to perceive, understand, and interact with the world around us. Next, cerebral cortex functional areas. The cerebral cortex is a highly complex structure that can be further divided into different functional areas. Each area of the cerebral cortex is associated with specific functions and contributes to various cognitive processes. Here are some of the key functional areas of the cerebral cortex, like primary motor cortex. Located in the frontal lobe, the primary motor cortex is responsible for planning and executing voluntary movements. It receives information from other brain regions and sends signals to the muscles to initiate specific movements. Then, primary sensory cortex. The primary sensory cortex is located in different lobes of the cerebral cortex and is responsible for processing sensory information from various modalities. For example, the primary somatosensory cortex processes touch and proprioception, while the primary visual cortex processes visual information. Then, auditory cortex. The auditory cortex, located in the temporal lobe, is responsible for processing auditory information. It helps in the perception and interpretation of sounds, including speech and music. Then, visual cortex, primarily located in the occipital lobe, is involved in processing visual information received from the eyes. It plays a crucial role in visual perception, object recognition, and visual memory. Then, somatosensory association cortex. This area, located in the parietal lobe, integrates sensory information from the primary somatosensory cortex to provide a more comprehensive perception of touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. It helps in identifying objects by touch and in spatial awareness. Then, Wernicke's area. Bound in the left hemisphere of the cerebral cortex, Wernicke's area is involved in language comprehension. It plays a crucial role in understanding spoken and written language. Then, Broca's area. Broca's area, also located in the left hemisphere, is involved in the production of speech. It helps in the coordination of the muscles involved in speech production. Then, prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex, located in the frontal lobe, is involved in higher order cognitive functions such as decision making, problem solving, planning, and working memory. It also plays a role in personality, social behavior, and emotional regulation. Then, association areas. The association areas of the cerebral cortex integrate information from different sensory and motor regions, allowing for complex cognitive processes. These areas are involved in tasks such as attention, memory, language comprehension, and abstract thinking. It's important to note that the functional areas of the cerebral cortex do not work in isolation but rather interact with each other and with other brain regions. They form complex networks that support various cognitive functions. Additionally, the functions attributed to specific cortical areas can vary between individuals to some extent. And understanding the functions of different areas of the cerebral cortex is essential for studying brain function, diagnosing neurological disorders, and developing targeted treatments for various cognitive impairments. Then, motor cortex. The motor cortex is a key region of the cerebral cortex. involved in the planning, execution, and control of voluntary movements. They play a crucial role in the coordination of muscle activity and enables us to perform a wide range of complex motor tasks. The motor cortex is located in the frontal lobe of each cerebral hemisphere, specifically in the precentral gyrus. It can be divided into two primary areas like primary motor cortex. The primary motor cortex, also known as M1, or the motor strip, is located in the precentral gyrus of the cerebral frontal lobe. It is responsible for initiating and executing voluntary movements. The cells in this area send signals directly to the muscles to generate specific movements. Then supplementary motor area, or SMA. The supplementary motor area is located anterior to the primary motor cortex. It is involved in the planning and coordination of complex movements, including bilateral movements and sequence of action. Some functions. The motor cortex performs several crucial functions related to voluntary movements. Motor planning. The motor cortex is involved in planning and organizing motor actions. It coordinates different muscle groups and generates motor plans to execute specific movements. Then motor execution. The motor cortex sends signals to the muscles through the spinal cord and peripheral nerve system, initiating and controlling voluntary movements. It determines the direction, force, and timing of muscle contractions required for precise movements. Then motor learning. The motor cortex plays a role in motor learning and skill acquisition. Through repeated practice, it helps to refine motor movements, improve coordination, and develop muscle memory. Then fine motor control. The motor cortex is responsible for fine motor control, enabling precise movements of fingers, hands, and other body parts. It allows us to perform delicate and intricate tasks such as writing, playing musical instruments, and manipulating small objects. What is the importance? The motor cortex is essential for our ability to interact with the environment and carry out complex motor tasks. It allows us to perform everyday activities from basic movements like walking and reaching to highly skilled movements like playing sports or typing on a keyboard. Without the proper functioning of the motor cortex, our ability to control voluntary movements would be severely impaired. Then defects and disorders. Damage or dysfunction of the motor cortex can lead to various motor impairments and disorders, including stroke. A stroke affecting the motor cortex can cause paralysis or weakness in specific body parts depending on the location of the damage. This can result in difficulties with movement and coordination. Then Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is characterized by the degeneration of dopamine producing neurons in the brain, including those in the motor cortex. It leads to motor symptoms such as tremors, rigidity, and slowness of movement, or bradykinesia. So, Parkinson's disease is characterized by the degeneration of dopamine producing neurons in the brain, including those in the motor cortex. It leads to motor symptoms such as tremors, rigidity, and bradykinesia. And motor neuron diseases. Motor neuron diseases such as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis affect the motor neurons in the motor cortex and spinal cord. This leads to muscle weakness, loss of coordination, and eventually paralysis. Then apraxia. Apraxia is a motor disorder characterized by the inability to perform purposeful movements despite intact motor abilities. It can result from damage to the motor cortex or its connections with other brain regions. So, in conclusion, the motor cortex is a vital component of the cerebral cortex that controls voluntary movements. It is responsible for motor planning, execution, and coordination, allowing us to perform a wide range of motor tasks. Dysfunction or damage to the motor cortex can result in motor impairments and disorders that affect movement and coordination. Understanding the motor cortex structure, function, and importance is essential for studying motor control, diagnosing motor disorders, and developing targeted interventions to improve health. Next, Broca's area. Broca's area, named after French physician Paul Broca, Pierre Paul Broca, is a region of the cerebral cortex located in the frontal lobe of the dominant hemisphere, typically the left hemisphere in right-handed individuals. Oh, this Broca's area can change, like if your dominant hemisphere is left hemisphere, This is where Broca's area is situated. But if you are a left-handed person, your dominant hemisphere will be the right hemisphere, so Broca's area will be there. So it plays a critical role in language production and speech comprehension. So Broca's area is composed of two main parts, like Brodmann area 4-4 or pars opercularis. Pars opercularis. This region is located in the posterior part of the frontal lobe, specifically in the inferior frontal gyrus of the dominant hemisphere. It is responsible for the motor aspects of speech production. So Brodmann area 44. Brodmann area 44 or pars opercularis. Then Brodmann area 45, like pars triangularis. Earlier, pars opercularis and pars triangularis. This area is adjacent to Brodmann area 44, located in the inferior frontal gyrus. It is involved in language processing and comprehension. Then functions. Broca's area plays a critical role in language production, particularly in the generation of coherent and fluent speech. Its functions include speech production. Broca's area is responsible for the motor control of the muscles involved in speech production, including the lips, tongue, and vocal cords. It coordinates the precise movements required for articulating words and forming grammatically correct sentences. Then language comprehension. Although traditionally associated with speech production, Broca's area also contributes to language comprehension. It helps in understanding the grammatical structure and syntactic rules of sentences. Then language processing. Broca's area is involved in higher level language processing tasks such as word retrieval, semantic processing, and sentence parsing. It aids in organizing and structuring linguistic information for effective communication. Broca's area is essential for the production and comprehension of language. Its functions are crucial for effective communication and expression of thoughts and ideas. Without the proper functioning of Broca's area, individuals may experience difficulties in speech production, such as difficulty speaking fluently, forming sentences, and finding the right words to express themselves. Then defects and disorders. Damage or dysfunction of Broca's area can lead to a language disorder known as Broca's aphasia or expressive aphasia. Some characteristics and associated deficits include non-fluent speech. Individuals with Broca's aphasia, I'm sorry for mispronouncing, aphasia, have difficulty speaking fluently. Their speech is often slow, laborious, and characterized by short phrases or single words. Then articulation problems. Broca's aphasia can cause difficulties in coordinating the movements required for speech articulation, leading to slurred or imprecise pronunciation. Then agrammarism. Individuals may have difficulty constructing grammatically correct sentences. They often omit functional words like articles, conjunctions, and they rely on shorter telegraphic speech. Then comprehension intact. Despite the challenges in speech production, comprehension of language and reading abilities remain actively intact in individuals with Broca's aphasia. In conclusion, Broca's area is a vital region of the cerebral cortex responsible for language production and comprehension. Its parts, including Brodmann areas 44 and 45, contribute to speech production, language processing, and comprehension. Dysfunction or damage to Broca's area can result in Broca's aphasia, characterized by difficulties in speech production while leaving language comprehension relatively intact. Understanding the structure, functions, and importance of Broca's area is crucial for studying language processing and communication disorders. Then somatosensory cortex. Next portion, somatosensory cortex, which we will be learning with the help of next video. Somatosensory cortex or S1 is a region of cerebral cortex located in the parietal lobe of the brain. It plays a crucial role in processing and interpreting somatosensory information, which we will be learning with the help of next video. Thank you for listening.